Welcome today. I hope everyone is well. I know I am. I'm over here at Clavelli Beach. It's such a lovely therapeutic place for me. It saved me in many ways. When I was going through that bout of mania, um, coming to Clavelli would always calm me down and relax me. It's a really, really lovely place if you feel like you need a de-stress, if you feel like you're overwhelmed. I actually think that that's a much better way for me to characterize what I was going through. It really was a feeling of being extraordinarily overwhelmed emotionally, so much so that I felt like I could burst. And I did. That's what those Facebook posts were. They were me bursting at the seams, it seems. Because I was put under so much pressure by my family, by Maroon, by my father, by Danny, funnily enough, through my Uncle Shabel's influence, and Zuzu through my Uncle Shabel's influence, and my Auntie Rada through my Uncle Shabel's influence. And it caused me to have a mental health breakdown. That lasted for several weeks, and I'm still recovering from. A lot of people in my family refuse to contend with that. They think, just like my Uncle Tony, who's a paranoid schizophrenic, they think I'm faking, which is frustrating in a way, or odd, or absurd. It's hard to find the words that they are so sure that I'm faking when they've done nothing but lie about every grain of my experience with them last year and early this year. We were approved for almost $2 million worth of equity loans, let's just say, against the properties in the family trust. And they were so dysfunctional that they just turned into sort of vultures clawing at me. As soon as they realized I was able to, get actual money from the family trust estate. And they violated my privacy. My Uncle Zulza would come over the house unannounced. My father would come over with my uncles unannounced. And I understand in the Lebanese Maronite community that's normal, but they know not to do that with me because I'm not them. I have a schedule and I have kids. People don't just turn over my house. It's extraordinarily disrespectful to me, and they know that. I'm not them. And I think that's what frustrates them the most. Despite their best efforts, I'm not them. Thank God. I'm more in line with the spirit of the Lebanese Maronite community than they ever have been. I say that firmly and with conviction. My father's a monster. And he's never not been a monster. And he's never really been a good person. I don't believe. I made a video. I made a podcast in relation to domestic violence in the Lebanese Maronite community, calling out my father and my uncle Charbel, and pointing out the fact that they're brothers and they both bashed their wives decades apart, highlighting the fact that it's still an issue and perhaps it's a systemic issue. And my father replied to that video podcast, because it's up on YouTube. I say video. He replied by saying, "I am a good father," or "I am a good dad." That's extraordinary for me to hear. Well, for me to read. Because he just would have listened to me talk about him assaulting my mother and myself, among other stories, non-flattering stories. And for him to hear that, the truth of that he knows is true, and make the decision that he wants to make it known publicly that despite the truth of that, he still believes that he's a good dad. It's despicable to the highest degree, in my opinion. And it really did upset me that he still doesn't seem to understand. He is not in the category of the regular Lebanese Maronite father, unfortunately. He's in the unique domestic violence, wife and kid bashing category. He's in the zero tolerance category. He is in the category that necessitates humility, and because of the shame of what you did. But no, rather you declared publicly, yes, bashed my wife and my kids, I'm still a good dad though. What a horrifying man you are. You are not a good dad. You're a bad dad. And a bad person. And I think I can highlight, or I can give an example of how bad you are, or how far from grace you are. Your first cousin, I believe, is Shora. And to me, he is a good example of a good father that is worth respecting and honoring. And it contrasts very starkly to the kind of father that you are, based on how your kids turned out. So Shorter is a good dad because his kids are doing well. His son Louis wasn't at one point. And this is something that Eddie brought up a lot. I wish my family was like Louis' family. I wish my dad was like Shorter. I wish my brother was like Gardam and Joey. I said that all the time. And you brought up Shorter and Gardam a lot as well. Dad, Majid, Saeed, Taouk. Because you know that you are a horrible dad, and you feel that in their presence. You have that insecurity because you know that they're a reflection of your failure. Or rather, no, sorry, they're not a reflection of your failure. Rather, they are a symbol of the fact that you are a failure, because they were able to mend the issues in their family quietly and with dignity, successfully. I embarrassed and shamed myself and my family because you wouldn't speak to me. Because you were so embarrassed of what I was saying about you, the truth of you, that you refuse to acknowledge or contend with. That was your fault. I needed an outlet. You left the Qatar and refused to speak to me. And your brother Maroon, who has equal share, left to take a labouring job when there was $1 million deal on the line that caused you to lose over $1 million, by the way. You're a bad businessman and a bad dad. Should have dealt with his son well, stoically, respectfully, quietly, and with dignity. Your other son's in jail after having a chat with you. You put so much pressure on him that he tried to commit suicide. Majid, Saeed, Taouk. Sharib's brother. My uncle Shari. My uncle Shabel. My uncle Charlie. You are a bad brother as well as a bad dad. My respectful and honourable mum saw that her child, me, was falling apart and tried desperately to do all she can to help, and she couldn't because it was beyond help from her at that point. I really just needed to speak to you, but she helped and she sacrificed in her own way. And she asked her brother Kholi Zuzu to speak to you in Bazikta when you were there, to speak to you about me, because you refused to speak to me because you were a bad dad. And I embarrassed myself. I shamed myself because you were such a conniving, duplicitous, criminal, lying, just a horrible monster, that when Kholi Zuzu went to speak to you about me, you chatted about life, hung out, and on your own convinced him that I was the issue. Did you tell him about the prostitutes that you used to have sex with in Yaguna when I was a kid? Did you tell him about the CDC that's almost complete at 15 Otto Street earlier this year? Did you tell him you're still using heroin? Did you tell him how you lied to me about 15 Otto Street being an investment property? Did you tell him how you lied to everyone, went behind my back and said that I stole money from the family? Did you tell him that? What did you tell him? Because he left thinking that he did a good job and that the problem was resolved. Did you not show him the track marks on the palm of your hand? Did you not make him understand? I embarrassed myself. I want to apologize to my Uncle Zulzul to Kholi Zuzu for saying what I said. And it's not true. Obviously not. Because Kholi Zuzu's a good and honourable man. And he has raised good children. Good, respectful children in Lebanon, in Pshari. Widely respected in the community. I don't believe he has track marks on the palm of his hand. I also don't believe that he's blocked his son's number. I don't believe he sent his son suicidal. I don't believe he introduced drugs into his son's life like you did. So when he went to visit you in Bazikta, in the house that you stole from your brother Maroon and father Saeed, he was coming as a respectful, honourable man that assumed you were a respectful and honourable man. What a shame. I suppose my mother forgot to tell him that you were a horrible monster, a failed criminal. You were in jail when I was born. You were in jail when I was in high school. You were in jail just before I proposed to my wife. You are a failed criminal. You used to come to our house with duffel bags full of stolen electronic devices. The best thing that people can say about you is that you were generous. You can't speak the language of a good and honourable man. It doesn't come natural to you. You have to lie and drink alcohol and take medicine to forget. You make me feel uncomfortable with respectful, honourable people like Kholi Zuzo, Kholi Roger, Kholi Halim. Because I feel like I'm unworthy. Because of the stain that you put inside me. Remember, these are good, honourable people. I have to contend with the memory that my father is a sex addict that leaves brothel menus in his house. While I look at someone respectful and honourable like my Uncle Zulzul. It's very uncomfortable. It doesn't fit well for me. However, that's because I held on to the notion that you were a good father and a good person. Once I let go of that lie, that uncomfortable lie that sat so uncomfortably in my chest and stomach and feet, when I stopped lying, that weight came off and words like this came easier, and I feel more comfortable thinking about my association with people like Kholi Zulzul. That's part of the reason why I think I was so confident in lashing out, because I felt like that barrier was gone, that weight of me being the dreaded son of Majid Saeed Taouk, the disgusting stain that he left, being a wife-bashing, child-bashing criminal. I've let go of that, and I see it's easier for me to just engage with my uncle. It's nice. It's lovely. I'm sorry for what I said. I didn't mean it. My father lied openly to Kholi Zulzul, as he does to everyone, because my father is too afraid to confront the truth. How horrific is the truth for him? He lives in Qatar, place that's 40 degrees in the shade, and he's sick, fat, and dying. His business is treading water. He is not loved by his children, unfortunately. you know, maybe they are. Maybe this is my expression of love. But this is the expression that he gets. This is my version of honoring him by declaring the truth about him plainly, brutally, and simply. He's a bad father and a monster that has been a detriment to the Lebanese Maronite community. I'm ashamed of him. My sister is ashamed of him. My father, Majid Taouk. And I realized that that shame is a choice. You embody that shame, you keep that shame, you hold on to his shame on his behalf for his sake, and I think for your sanity as well. You just sort of, you know, you just swallow the truth about your dad and you just forget it, even though every day is a reminder of the horrible monster that he is, the apathetic, vile creature confronted with all the horrors that he's done, still believes confidently, no, still a good father. Yeah, you can let go of that. It's a choice. And it's unfair for anyone to think that you should bear that weight for anyone. That's on him. It's his weight, not mine. It's his job and it's his duty to be a better father and a better person, and he is failing miserably. He is shameful and a disgrace to the Lebanese Maronite community, as well as his brother, my uncle Charlie, Charles Chabel, Charlie Taouk. Bad father, bad uncle, bad people that have been allowed to roam around for too long. I suppose that's all I have to say about that. I'm really happy with that, I think. So, yeah, in summation, my father is a bad uncle, husband, friend, businessman, patient, criminal, drug addict, and dad. Just bad at all of those things. Just a failure of a human being, unfortunately. And I don't want that failure to rub off on me anymore. It rubbed off on me far too much for that year that I was working with him and the family, and it will take years to recover. Alright. Love you. Bye.